Hello, hello, hello. I'm HoJo.
And I'm Hunnsy.
And welcome to this, the 34th episode of HoJo and Hunnsy's Hard Rock House, the safe space for old rock gumbies, just like us, where rock and roll are four-letter words, but they're nowhere near as rude as dick and dong, are they, Hunnsy?
I can think of far worse words than dick and dong. Imagine if this is the first episode that you tuned into.
Yeah.
Actually, let's imagine it was the second, and you only listened to the back half of the last episode where we talked about our favourite bus, right?
Yeah.
Now you've just gone, right, I wonder if these guys can get any lower. Yeah, they're talking about dick and...
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I think we will have to change the name of the podcast to HoJo and Hunnsy's Surreal House.
Yeah, or HoJo and Hunnsy's Dick Dong Wang House or something, aren't you? A little bit of update. Episode 32 is off to a flying start.
Is it? Up in the millions?
I wouldn't go that far. I got a lot of comments from foreigner fans on the Silent Partners album sleeve that I did.
Did you? Are you claiming that your AI album sleeve generation is more popular than our podcast?
No, all I'm saying is I've got the impression that a lot of people thought it was an actual album.
Brilliant. Let's remind single-digit listeners about the last episode when we were laughing about how easy it was for AI to create album sleeves and that Foreigner had turned down an original concept for what turned out to be the Four album because they thought it was too homosexual.
I said I was going to take the original idea that was pitched to Foreigner from Hypnosis around...
Silent Partners.
Yeah, which was a young man lying on a bed with a pair of binoculars suspended above his head. So through the power of artificial intelligence, I created what could have been the album Foreigner 4 if it had been called Silent Partners. And I sent it around a few Foreigner fan groups. One guy just went, "Oh, that's a brilliant album." And I'm thinking, how is it a brilliant
album? It doesn't exist. I've never seen it. I've never heard it. It doesn't even exist, but I love it.
Yeah, I love it. It's brilliant.
Love that album. It's got Foreigner on it.
Yeah. It's created a bit of a, I'm not going to say a storm. Oh, well, that's got to be good, wouldn't it? Because obviously Storm was one half of Hypnosis, wasn't he?
He was. Yeah, he was.
I haven't created a storm. I've created something that Storm would have created if the band hadn't rejected it.
And people got excited about that, did they?
They did get excited about it.
And what was the general vibe?
People were very excited that the sleeve for Silent Partners
have seen the light of day, and then
they
haven't worked out that this is just us fucking around.
Yeah, because I even put the proper Foreigner logo on it and everything.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I've designed a lot of album sleeves in my time, and that's one of my favourites that I've done. Yeah. It took me as long as it took me to type "young boy lying on bed with binoculars above his head."
Okay, so before we talk about what album you've been listening to, what has been rocking your world this week? Anything in the world of rock that's piqued your attention? Nothing really. Nothing at all.
Nothing. No.
Because usually if you go on your Facebook or something like that, somebody's always posting some nonsense about silly 80s rock, aren't they? So I thought maybe
I'm part of a little Facebook group that talks about heavy metal quite a lot.
Because doing a podcast once a week isn't enough for you, is it?
And someone posted, I think it was an advert from Sounds magazine back in 1981.
Right.
And in the back of Sounds, they used to have like the gig pages. I think it was called Stepping Out.
It was called Stepping Out, I remember, yeah.
Yeah. There was a page crammed full of tiny little ads for what was on in London. It was a really interesting page. I'll put it up on our socials and ask the question, which one would you have gone to? It's from 1981. I'm going to tell you who was on the marquee in Wardour Street.
Yeah, the classic mid-range rock venue where all bands who aspired to greatness started.
Yeah, so this was the end of January up to the end of the first week of Feb. This is the marquee's offering for that week, okay?
Okay.
Take your pick. Which night would you decide to go out on in 1982? Psychedelic Furs? Not really. The Spizzles?
The Spizzles? I preferred them when they were Spiz Energy.
Are you familiar with someone at the marquee, Jerry Floyd?
Yeah, Jerry Floyd, I remember the name.
Every gig apart from Psychedelic Furs
was compared by Jerry Floyd.
It says plus support and Jerry Floyd. So you've got the Spizzles, you've got a band called the Mechanics, spelled properly, not the UFO Mechanics with the F.
That's no good.
A band called Taurus.
Taurus were metal.
Were they?
Yeah. You're not going to have a new wave band called Taurus, are you?
No, and this is the night I would have gone out. I would have gone out on Tuesday the 3rd of February. It was £1.25 to get in,
Okay.
Yeah.
Reasonable.
The supporting artist was Limelight.
Okay, they sound like a soft rock band.
Yeah, but the headliners were More. I fucking love More.
Fronted by a big fellow, weren't they?
I was too young at the time to appreciate how good More were. I have promised myself that What Have I Been Listening To was going to be a More record. And I will get round to it.
You do know, though, don't you, if the NME, the trendy music newspaper in the 80s, had got to review a More album, you know what the review would have been, don't you?
No More.
Yeah, or just less.
Yeah. But getting back to the ad, there's an ad for Throbbing Gristle at the Lyceum.
None of these are rock bands, though, aren't they? It's too much new wave for your taste, surely.
Gillan at the Rainbow Theatre.
Okay, that's not new wave.
Iron Man Hammersmith Odeon on the Killers Tour, supported by Trust.
I saw them on that tour.
There's an ad for Nottingham Rock City here, where Gillan feature again, as does the Gordon Giltrap Band. There's a gig listing for the Porterhouse Club in...
Retford Porterhouse, yeah, I remember it well.
Retford Porterhouse. Yeah, the sensational Alex Harvey Band are playing.
Oh, I would like to have seen them.
Yeah, they must have been on their arse at that point.
Oh, they must have been, because the Retford Porterhouse was tiny.
Yeah, but 1981 as well.
Yeah, by then they're well on the way down, aren't they?
Well on the way down.
You know why? Because Chris Glenn's already surely jumped ship for the Michael Schenker group, and that's
Yeah, he
obviously
would
the
have done.
end.
Yeah, he would have
That's
done.
the end of the sensational Alex Harvey band
He would
when the
have done.
bass player leaves.
There is obviously an advert for the Castle Brollies in Whitaker Avenue, Richmond, where on Saturday the 31st of January and Sunday the 1st of February, Neil Kay's Heavy Metal Soundhouse, featuring the famous, it says famous, I've never heard of it, JPS Mega Sound System.
No, I've never heard of it either.
Neil Kay presents, in words and music, the history of Deep Purple.
Oh, you'd pay good money to see that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
A man playing records.
And talking. Yeah.
Ooh. I could probably do without the words.
Yeah.
Just stick to the music, Neil.
Yeah. So when you asked that original question, have you been getting excited this week?
That's a good thing to get excited about.
I thought, which gig would I go to? Obviously, I said Gillan.
Well, that's reasonable.
Yeah.
But not more.
But what I know now, I'd have chosen.
Yeah, you go and see more.
Are you familiar with their work?
I remember the very first time I got invited to Castle Donington Monsters of Rock. I think they were on the bill.
Were they on the first one?
No, I think it's the second one.
Was it
AC/DC? The first one I missed because I was on a German exchange.
Right. Okay.
Poor reason not to go to the first Castle Donington Monsters of Rock, isn't it?
Well, at least you're in Germany.
Yeah, home of the Gumby.
I would say the heartland.
Yeah, very much so. So that was why I missed the first one. And then, second one, I was already doing my fanzine.
Was it Phoenix?
Yeah, Phoenix. And I managed to blag press ticket. And there's a brilliant photograph of me. I can't remember if we've put this on the socials before, but we'll do it this time if we haven't, of me with Angry Anderson.
Yes, we have put that on.
And I'm wearing the homemade Trust silk satin tour jacket.
Okay. Was it homemade?
Yeah, I bought a Trust patch
Yeah.
and then thought it'd be a good idea to get it sewn onto the satin jacket.
Right.
Which is a bit weird, isn't it, really? I don't think Trust were much of a satin tour jacket band, were they? Or was everybody a satin tour jacket band in 81?
I think there were a few satin tour jackets hanging around.
It didn't matter what kind of music you were playing. A satin tour jacket was good, no matter what.
Yeah, but I'm just surprised you bought a patch. I thought you would have attempted to paint the Trust logo.
Yeah, well, it just shows how much I must have been into Trust.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that photograph. You were photographed with Angry Anderson from Rose Tattoo.
Yeah.
That was from that Donington.
That was in the backstage area. And if you look at the picture,
it looks grim.
It's brilliantly unglamorous, the backstage area in 1981. It just looks like a teepee and some bare shrubland.
3 years later, 1984, it's often talked about as the greatest Monsters of Rock festival ever. DC, Van Halen. A year ago now, maybe less. There was all that footage that was released online of Van Halen's show.
Yes.
Forget about the show. It's all the bit backstage where Neil Sean's there and it just looks grim.
But the funny thing is, Hunnsy, by 1984, I can remember because I went to every Donington, I think, after 81 up until about 87. I think 87 was when I checked out because I wasn't there for that terrible Guns N' Roses Crush thing. So it must have been 87, the last one I went to see. Right. But what I do remember is by 84, in comparison to 81, that was the lap of luxury with loads of record companies putting tents on and free booze and free food all day. And yet even then, when my recollection was, wow, this was a really over-the-top, wonderful backstage area. And you look at the footage from 84 and you go, blimey, I don't know if I'd go next door to a party that looked like that. That was as good as it got.
When you were there in 81, did you watch more? We're back to more.
No, I don't think I did. What I do remember was, again, it just shows how weird it was and how things have changed. I watched AC/DC's set. Now, they were on the For Those Back to Rock tour, weren't they, on that one?
We were, yeah.
I watched their set from hanging off the gantry of one of the lighting rigs at the side of the stage.
When you say hanging...
No, there must have been some kind of a platform or something at the side of the stage where all the scaffolding was. I literally mean at the side of the stage.
Yeah. How did you manage to blag that?
I have no idea. Somebody invited me up there, or I blagged it, or I did it incognito. But whatever way you slice it, there's something lacking in the security, isn't there? When some 16-year-old kid who's only there because he writes a fanzine is allowed to be on the side of the stage, on the scaffolding, watching the band.
But they hadn't learned their lesson, because if you watch that footage of Van Halen in 1984, during Van Halen's set, there's random 16-year-olds jumping on the stage.
What was going on? That just wouldn't happen anyway, would it?
No, you need about 19 wristbands just to go for a piss backstage.
Yeah. Sorry, mate. Nah, you haven't got the piss wristband.
You'll have the piss wristband at Black Sabbath, though, won't you?
Oh, well, I've had terrible news this week.
Oh, no. You couldn't negotiate the Dawn After Dark fee for appearing.
No, that's happening. I've told you once. You don't believe me, but we'll be doing that. I've been told that the demand for the press tickets is absolutely huge. Plus, because it's for charity, you're going to have to pay for them.
Well, that's fine. You should be expected to pay for them for charity.
Even in a working environment, you're supposed to pay.
If you manage to get yourself a guest ticket for any festival these days, you go up to pick up your pass and they always ask for a donation to a local charity, 25 quid, 30 quid, and you go, that's all right, I don't mind paying that. How much is the Sabbath one?
Oh, well, I don't know. They haven't said, but I imagine it's going to be the cost of the ticket, don't you?
No, it'll be like 50 quid or something.
I'm not so sure. If it's 50 quid, I'll pay it myself. So there you go. That's the terrible news that I've received this week. I had to take a lie down when I was told that.
By the way, listeners, we are going to get onto what we've been listening to. But do you remember a few years ago when me and you cycled up to download? Do you remember that? I don't know why we did it. I think we ventured out to go and watch Tesla, the unfortunately named Tesla now.
Yeah.
Obviously. And
why are they unfortunately named?
Because Tesla's owned by that.
Oh, of course, yeah. I didn't even make the connection. Very unfortunately named.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll have to change their name, won't they, now? Got to find some other brilliant inventor who's nothing associated with that plonkus.
They could change their name to...
Alexander Graham Bell. It's a great competition, though. Single-digit listeners, what name should Tesla change their band name to? So they don't have to be associated with that plonkus.
Well, you've got to remember, some of our listeners might like that plonkus.
Well, I don't really care. He's a plonkus. Don't listen to our show if you like that plonkus.
If you like him, don't listen to our show.
Yeah, just don't listen.
Oh, talking about when we went to download and we walked...
Oh, yeah, on the way down there. It was taking so long. I'd moved on.
On the one time where we decided, Tesla on, let's go and watch Tesla.
Yeah. Can't we change their name and make it an anagram? Because an anagram of Tesla is Sleet, isn't it?
We'll call them Sleet. So we're on our way out to go and watch Sleet. We wandered out there. We're in that wonderful observing mode. We saw this young man, and should we say he was in a condition?
Well, you say he was absolutely twatted, wasn't he?
Absolutely tired. It was freezing cold in June. I think it probably was pissing down. He was in a state of absolute disrepair, and he was topless. We noticed the tattoo on his back.
It was a tattoo, yeah, you're right.
Not a small tattoo.
Covering the whole of his back.
And it wasn't the Motorhead logo. Can you remember what it said?
I can remember exactly what it said.
Do you want to tell everybody what it said?
Yeah, it said, clearly, I have made some bad decisions. Which I have to say is one of the greatest tattoos ever done.
So what year was that? 2017, maybe?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're out there, Mr. Tattoo Man, if you're one of our single-digit listeners...
Or you know the man who's got the big back tattoo of clearly, I have made some bad decisions. Get in touch.
I think it was so cold and so wet and so miserable, I couldn't be asked to get my phone out to take a photograph.
Yeah, I know that you like to say, whenever we talk about anybody, you go, get him on. But, oh, man, if we could get him on just for 5 minutes to tell us about the story of his tattoo, that would be something, wouldn't it?
It would be absolutely amazing.
I can't wait for him to be a grandfather. And the little kids are going, what's that?
Anyway, right, what have I been listening to? I've been listening to an album that I remember at the time thinking, this is their best work. It's their third album. And despite the fact that I loved their first two, I never thought they could beat the second one. But the third one, for me, was just brilliant. Unfortunately, it came out in 1991.
And we know what that means. We say it almost weekly. The grunge wars were being fought and the hair metalers were taking a hell of a beating.
I think this album did all right, actually. I've been listening to the third album by LA Guns called Hollywood Vampires.
Hollywood Vampires is your favourite LA Guns record?
Yeah. I think it's the album where they stepped away from the stereotypical trying to be that LA band. They put more of their diverse musical influences into this record. To the outsider looking in, because they weren't probably as huge as Guns.
They followed after Guns N' Roses and weren't as successful. Everyone went there a copycat band. But they weren't really, to be fair to them.
No, they weren't. Axl Rose with Tracy Guns, they were in a band together, and Tracy was good mates with Izzy Stradlin. But back to Hollywood Vampires, it's a really mature record. It just feels like they made a record that they wanted to make rather than what the industry was telling them to make. First track is clearly influenced by Zeppelin, Over the Edge. They've got a couple of 50s style doo-woppy, poppy songs in there. There's a brilliant ballad called Crystallize, which obviously...
Crystal High?
No, calm down. Crystallize. Not crystallize as in the chemical reaction.
Crystal Eyes.
This album probably didn't get as much airplay as it should have done, but it has been on my Spotify and everything for the last 10 days or so.
What's your take on Phil Lewis as a vocalist?
I think he is unique.
Interesting choice of adjective.
But he doesn't sound like anybody else, does he? I don't think he's got a typical rock voice.
Okay, so, right, you're down on the side of great voice.
Yeah, I love those girl records that he did. Loads of Zeppelin. There's a bit of Aerosmith in there. There's a bit of doo-woppy 50s type stuff. There's a bit of power pop in there. It's a brilliant record. So,
okay, well,
Hollywood Vampires by LA Guns. If you're not familiar with it, because in 1991 you started wearing Doc Marten boots and baggy jumpers and dismissed everything.
And pretended that you'd never had a codpiece over leather trousers.
Yeah, go and discover this record. A couple of tracks co-written with Jim Vallance.
I see, that always makes me suspicious.
Well, he didn't do Bryan Adams any harm, did he?
Well... didn't do him any harm in selling records through.
Yeah, so Hollywood Vampires, LA Guns.
Hollywood Vampires, LA Guns, worth a listen. Check it out.
There are some fucking terrible records that didn't deserve to survive grunge, right? But this was not one of them. What have you been listening to?
You know, when you said Hollywood Vampires was the album where they kind of revealed their true selves, and maybe the Sunset Strip thing wasn't the whole of their musical makeup. The band that I was listening to is another band that morphed from one thing to another. And you could possibly say that it was a betrayal of their roots, and some people do. But most people think it was a very wise decision and they found their true vocation. The album I've been listening to is a 1992 record, and it's called Vulgar Display of Power by Pantera, who I seem to remember this week you posted something saying they're false. Is that true?
Yes.
Why?
They were a hair metal band to start with.
They were, weren't they? They were from Texas, and originally they played hair metal and they had the spiky hair and the funny guitars, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then they underwent a radical remodeling. And I think the first album where they suddenly went, oh, we're a thrash band, was Cowboys from Hell, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. There is evidence online of Pantera trying to be a glam metal band.
One's called Projects in the Jungle, I think, which is a funny title.
It is.
I don't know why it's funny. It just makes me laugh.
Vulgar Display of Power was their 6th album.
It took them a while to get to where they needed to be. So maybe they did 4 glam albums. I don't know. Phil Anselmo wasn't always in the band, was he?
No, but it was double platinum, this record.
Because it was huge. You must know the record, surely.
Yeah, I know the record, but I didn't. I'm just looking at it now. I didn't realise it was that big.
Oh, that would be... Well, I mean, as you know, from having called them false this week, have you seen photographs from their European tour that they've just been doing?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people turning out to see them still, isn't there? Anyway, Vulgar Display of Power is an album that I listened to a lot when it came out. I wasn't a massive thrash fan. Slayer didn't light my fire. Megadeth didn't light my fire. Like Metallica, like everybody. But then I have to say, the new and improved version of Pantera came along, and I was very much sold. Vulgar Display of Power was the album that really got me interested in the band. For a period of, 9 to 12 months there, I was really into this record. And going back and listening to it again made me see why, because it does have some brilliant songs on it. Walk. It's a very insistent riff, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I suppose part of the reason why I liked the album was that it didn't have to be really fast all the way through, weirdly, to be part of that thrash scene. I thought the groove element that they had to the music was quite different to thrash music. Most thrash was powerful because it was fast and it was intense and there was a lot of testosterone flying around, but there wasn't a lot of groove going on. And all of a sudden Pantera came along with Walk and Mouth for War, and they were kind of groovy. And then, of course, they did have a song called Fucking Hostile as well, which was good. You're making me fucking hostile! He was very angry, wasn't he?
But then there was a song called This Love.
Yeah. Does that show that Philip Anselmo had a wide emotional range? I think we're going to be kind, aren't we, and say he had a wide emotional range.
Yeah.
Never interviewed him. I know he divides opinion, but I've never spoken to him, so it's hard for me to judge.
Do you remember that festival in London, High Voltage, that happened for a couple of years?
I do.
It was the year after Ronnie Dio had passed away. The band that headlined was Heaven and Hell. It was Tony, it was Vinny Appice. I can't remember who was doing the vocal, but he was brilliant. It was a tribute to Ronnie, and it was very emotional. Strong alcohol had been taken, and we were down the front, and obviously we were meant to be seeing Ronnie, but obviously he passed away. So it was very much a tribute to Ronnie. The guy who stepped in, again, can't remember his name, did a sterling job.
What a legacy. Can't remember his name.
Heaven and Hell are headlining and doing all the Heaven and Hell stuff and Mob Rule stuff, and it's just fucking brilliant because you're there to celebrate Ronnie. And I think they started doing Neon Nights. And out of nowhere, from stage left or whatever it was, Anselmo, who clearly had been on the booze as well, just runs on, grabs the mic off this poor bloke, who I can't remember his name, and just starts singing Neon Night because he's absolutely smashed up his face.
Excellent news.
It was funny. But someone grabbed him immediately, ushered him off.
This way, Philip. Let's go and take a sit down, shall we, Philip? But anyway, what I do know is that Vulgar Display of Power kept me going through 1992. I remembered at the time that I thought, yeah, the first 5 tracks or something like that are really good. And then it tails off. I still feel that after listening to it again this week. First 5 tracks, brilliant, then tails off. But you get 5 really great tracks on an album. They've earned their corn, haven't they?
Yeah. Was this their biggest record? Was it all downhill after this?
They were big. They were a big band. They still are. The weird thing about it, when I was doing my research and looking at it, I saw that it was eventually certified double platinum in America, 2 million copies. Obviously, that's a lot of copies. But it only got to 40-something on the charts at the time, which... We've mentioned this before, haven't we? Just shows how many records were being sold at that time. You could have a 2 million selling record that got to like 40 or whatever it was.
The last one that I remember was the one after it, that Far Beyond Driven album.
I don't know why, but I never really... I must listen to every album. I had that one record that I really liked and I just stuck with it.
And obviously the tragic... Imagine being shot on stage.
It was poor. Poor form from the fella who shot him.
Do you think... And I'm saying this sensitively. Do you think that terrible incident where Dimebag gets shot on stage
by some douchebag
who was probably a fan?
I don't know the ins and outs of it.
It's very John Lennon, isn't it? Do you think that that incident has helped them in a way in terms of
cementing the legend?
Yeah, and the love that the fans have for them.
Probably, but I bet they wish it hadn't.
To actually have a member of your band, not just a member, but probably the key member. Was it Phil? Was it Dimebag? Probably Dimebag, right? To have him die in such a way.
I think what's more important is, wouldn't that be in the back of your mind when you're on a stage with that legacy or whatever you want to call it, that history behind you? The guys who are now on stage, would that not be in the back of your mind every time you go and play?
Yeah.
I don't want to be a doom monger or anything.
No. You've interviewed Charlie Benante quite recently. And did you talk to him about that?
No, he wasn't around, was he?
No, I know. Bill Anselmo, he must have these moments where if he sees a movement out of the corner of his eye, which might just be a guy on the mixing desk, it must play on your mind a little bit, mustn't it? If you're on
I would have thought so, yeah. What a gloomy note from laughing at Sleet. Look at us now.
So Vulgar Display of Power.
Vulgar Display of Power, that's the record I've been listening to this week. Still has 2 of my favourite thrash tracks on it. Fucking Hostile and Walk. Go back and have a listen and relive your mosh-pitting youth. Right, mister, it's time we went.
Yeah, it's time we went. Good episode. I'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.